Hi, welcome back to my couch. Um, I am coming to you like this, because I currently don't feel well, and I have a heating pad on my lower back because, it is the time of the month for me, and unfortunately, I'm having some really bad lower back pain. Um, so I am trying to rest with a heating pad on my lower back, before we have to go in about an hour for Caden's soccer game. But it is Sunday, May 7th, and I wanted to check in how this first week of May has gone book-wise. So, I don't want to say DNF'd a book, because I didn't even, start it. But let's say I rejected a book. I am, 70-ish percent through with a different audiobook that I did not mention in my TBR. And I am about 70 pages in to The Fervor. And I just thought I would give you an update. So the book that I rejected, we're going to say that. I don't have it. It was an audiobook that I had placed on hold last month, actually, because the premise sounded really intriguing. And it is, I can't even remember who the author is. I will, it's called Reader, I Murdered Him. I will find a picture and insert it. But it's called Reader, I Murdered Him. And the whole thing is that Adele is a vigilante, essentially. She is sent away to school, and one of her friends is, I believe, assaulted by a man, and it is all about women's revenge, essentially. Feminine rage and revenge. So her friend gets assaulted, or she gets assaulted, somebody is, but she decides that she is now going to go and protect women and avenge the ones who have been harmed. And I guess that means killing bad men. I found out, right before I started it, that it's supposed to be characters from Jane Eyre, which is one of my favorite classics. So it is supposed to be the story of Adele, the little girl that Rochester is the guardian of in the book Jane Eyre. And it's supposed to be her story. I don't think it has anything to do with Jane Eyre. It just takes her storyline and then gives her a teenage story, I guess. But it does make sense as to why it was called Reader, I Murdered Him. I did not put that together at the time. But I started to listen to it and absolutely hated the narrator. Didn't like her voice at all. Could not stand it. It was very high-pitched and, grainy. It just was not a good fit. And I found myself getting very annoyed, so I just went, nope, and I rejected it, into the first chapter. I listened to it for a little while, don't get me wrong. I always give it a fair chance, but then wasn't for me. So then I found Kill the Farm Boy. I guess I'm on a kick. And it is hilarious. So, also can't remember who the author is. I can picture the cover, which I will also insert. It is all about fairy tale tropes and turns them on their heads and makes fun of them. So, we are following Worstley, who is the second son of a poor couple, whose older brother, Bestley, has unfortunately died. And Worstley is out doing chores when a horrible, ugly sprite shows up and deems him the chosen one, and also makes his goat be able to talk. And so then he decides he must go out because he's the chosen one and go do something. Along the way, we meet Thea, who is a giant Amazon of a woman who is a barbarian and, of course, is clad only in a chainmail bikini, and she hates it. We have a castle with a tower where they have befallen a sleeping curse and everyone is asleep because someone touched a rose. We have a cursed bard who is part rabbit and she doesn't want to be a bard. She was forced to become a bard by her father. She wanted to be an accountant. And we also meet the Dark Lord, who is Toby. Toby is the Dark Lord. And he's really not much of a Dark Lord. He wants to be a really powerful wizard, but doesn't have a beard and doesn't have a cool familiar. And he's convinced that if he grows a beard or he makes a really fine familiar, he'll become the all-powerful Dark Lord. And really, he just wants to be able to make his own artisan crackers and eat cheese and crackers. A way for him to also get his power, though, is, of course, to acquire the heart of a chosen one. So he sends his rogue, Paltry, to go on this mission to get the heart of a chosen one. But Paltry is not the brightest bulb, and she's also terrified of chickens. Paltry. But Paltry is terrified of chickens and is very clumsy and rather obtuse. And somehow, essentially, they all come together. They decide to band together. And, of course, the witch who laid the curse on the tower is also Worsley's aunt, because that's how this works. But I am 75% through, and we have met a troll. We've met an ogre named Olfactory, who is a gourmet chef. We have met elves in the Morningwood. Plenty of jokes made about that. Exactly what you think it is. We're in a city. We've met a cursed person who was turned into an animal as well. But it definitely took a turn that I wasn't expecting, and I'm not sure how it's going to end. I'm not sure where the wrap-up is going to be. And I have to admit, it started off incredibly strong for me. I found it hilarious. I really loved where it was going. The opening when we met Worsley and the goat, and when we first met all of these characters, really, really loved it. And it's rather long. The audiobook is like 12 to 13 hours. And at this point, I'm feeling less enthusiastic about it, but I'm going to finish it. I'll give more thoughts when I finish it. And finally, I've got The Fervor. And like I said, I just thought I would check in. I am 70 pages in, and it is already weird in a good way. So this was number 20 for the Goodreads top 20 horror books of 2022. And right away, we are in it. So we start off, we've got a couple different character and storylines that we're following that I didn't expect. And I'm sure eventually they're all going to be related somehow. And some of those connections have already been shown. But we don't really know how they're all connected. But there's still one that is completely, have no idea who this is. But, and we're kind of in dual timelines in a way. So we're getting snippets from the 1920s of, and I looked it up. I looked up how to pronounce the main character, Mako. It is Mako, not Miko, Mako. We get, in 1920, we are reading the journals of Mako's dad, who is a scientist, and he has taken his family to this island to conduct experiments on. And we are learning we're kind of getting some glimpses of her childhood through the lens of her dad's journals. We've only had like 2 of those. Then, of course, there is Mako herself and her daughter, Eiko, and they are in the 1940s, 1944, in a Japanese internment camp in Idaho, Camp Minidoka. I don't know if that was a real camp or if that was something the author made up or if it was, but she and her daughter are unfortunately being held in this internment camp because they are Japanese, even though they are Japanese American, just because it was set during that time period of, World War II. We were fighting against Japan, and so Japanese Americans were being prejudiced against and pulled out of their homes and sent to these internment camps. So Mako, unfortunately, is there, even though she is married to a white American man who is an Air Force pilot, and they have a daughter, and so she is considered, according to them, I don't feel this way, so just being clear, she is considered a half-breed, which is awful, just because her mother is Japanese from Japan and immigrated over to America, but her dad is obviously a white guy, so that sucks. And Eiko is a little strange. We really haven't talked to Eiko at all, other than right there at the beginning when Eiko is like spooky little kid, right? I don't want to say she's an evil kid, but she's kind of spooky. Her mom's walking her to school and she's like, hey, the demons are talking to me. And it's like, what? Like, that's our introduction to Eiko. And that's pretty much all we've gotten from her. And then we have also been introduced to the Reverend Archie Mitchell. So we start the book off with the journal entry from her dad, and then chapter 1 actually opens with this Archie Mitchell and his wife Elsie, and they are going to go on a picnic with the neighborhood kids because their parents are sad because they've lost their older kids in the war, and so they're like, we'll take the younger ones for a picnic. And then bad stuff happens, and so when we flash back to him, to the Reverend, we're getting pieces of his story, and how he is currently dealing with grief, and it's not a spoiler because it happens. In the very first chapter, there is an explosion, and he is the only survivor. He and one of the kids survives, and so then we're now just following him dealing with the aftermath of surviving an explosion and death. And he is the Reverend. And then lastly, we've been introduced to Fran, who is a newspaper reporter, and she is the mistress to Richard. She's another dude. She's a dude's mistress, and they are currently on a weekend rendezvous. And something weird happens in the middle of the night. We've only seen them once. I think the next chapter I'm about to read actually goes back to them. But she is interested in what's going on and wants to follow her reporters' nose and figure it out. And of course, because this is a secret rendezvous, the guy is like, no one can know we were here. No one can know we were together. Leave it alone. But yeah, things have already gotten kind of spooky. We've already been introduced to weird stuff. I'm trying to talk about it without giving spoilers, but what I find very interesting, right, is we're getting peeks into these different timelines. So we've got what's happening in the 1920s. We're seeing in the past Mako's childhood and her dad. And I'm sure that's going to influence her. And then we're back here in the 40s, and with the Reverend, it's happening over the course of several days. But every time we go back to Mako, right now at least, it is still one day. She is following the course of one day, which I find very interesting. Like, that is intriguing to me that we're still on day 1 of Mako, but we've kind of jumped around several days with the other people. So, but there's always some weird stuff with, like, demon imagery. There is mentions of spiders, which we knew about from the synopsis, that we're going to be, it's inspired by the spider demon, and that has already been coming in full force. So I will definitely say, if spiders are a fear for you, if they make you uncomfy in any way, this is not going to be for you, because we have already come across it several times, and this is still really early, and it's really not that, like, so it's just going to get worse. Yeah. So go in with caution if that is something that is like a big trigger for you, or a big scare or ick factor. So that's all I got. I will check in some more. I plan on reading of this some more today. With my back in pain, it is going to be probably as lazy and as restful as I can be this Sunday, because of this. But yeah. So I'm going to be reading some more. I did a lot of chores yesterday, so I'm not feeling too guilty about resting. But I'm going to take this. Like I said, Caden's got a soccer game today, and it is also his picture day for the soccer team. And I'm excited we're going to get pictures this year of his soccer and give them to family. But I'm going to bring this with me, and I'm going to read it during pictures and downtime of the soccer game and stuff like that. So I will see you all again very soon. Okay, so it's hot as balls right now in Iowa, because for whatever reason summer decided to come early this weekend. It is literally like 90 degrees, and Caden has a soccer game in this weather, which of course it's the hottest part of the day. He is the one in the yellow. He is going to be goalie for the first little bit of his game. Just thought this would be fun. They're warming up. They're waiting for, I guess, the other team to be ready. It was also picture day. That's why there's a yellow tent. But yeah, there he is. See if I can get him to wave. No, he's not waving. That's okay. I hate the heat. Okay. I don't even know what I was gonna say. I am just, all I know is I am about 100 pages further, a little over 100 pages further than when I last checked in. So I'm right at like 175 pages. And I just needed to record because what I just read was tough. So I'm trying to think of what I can say without spoiling things. So more people are getting sick, and things are getting crazy, and we've just kind of been told that, that when people get sick, it starts off as like a flu. You get really bad flu symptoms, but then it becomes mental, right? So you physically are ill, but then it morphs into this madness, and it takes over your senses, essentially, in that you become just this rage-filled person. And people are dying. So people are either dying because they go mad and the illness kills them, or they go mad and they start attacking other people And so someone gets attacked and maybe gets killed by an angry person, or in the midst of two angry people attacking themselves, they die. It has been hinted that the doctors who have come into the camp have killed people for, the betterment of the community. But what is really affecting me is not like the spider imagery. It is not the fear of this crazy illness, right? It's not even the like ghosts or the demons that we have been slowly introduced to. They talk about the Japanese. They are mentioning a few Japanese demons. There are a few like urban legend tale figures that this is really focusing on, which it says in the synopsis. So this is not giving anything away of, the yokai, the demons, the ghosts, and the Jorogumo, which is the spider demon. Like that is what this is focusing on. So like that's where this is going. People are seeing images of these demons, these ghosts, right? That horror is really, to me, not what is disturbing. The racism is heart-wrenching and is affecting me very strongly. And I think a good passage that I want to share, because I think it encapsulates what is happening. So this is set during World War II, right? And we know all about Germany and the political leaders in Germany and what was happening during the Holocaust and those things, right? We know about this in history. What I feel gets looked over is also the atrocities that Americans also committed during this time against other American citizens. We put people in internment camps because of the color of their skin, because of their ethnicity, because of where their parents were born, where their grandparents were born. Never mind the fact that these Japanese American people were Americans. And so Mako essentially confronts a guard and says, "I don't think you're bad," she said to him, remaining cool to show disapproval. "But what you're doing isn't right, and you know it. How are you any different from a guard in a Nazi concentration camp?" He sucked in his breath hard. The Nazis were the bad guys, whereas every American believed he was a good guy. Yeah. And that just struck me as so powerful because it's true. And we justify things by telling ourselves it's the right thing to do because we're the good guys, and that's bullshit. And I literally just finished a chapter that was actually a flashback that was set in 1940. So this book takes place in 1944, the main story. This flashback takes place in 1940, and essentially a white woman who is the wife of a minister has a miscarriage at 5 months, which is sad, of course. But what's not sad is she blames her miscarriage on Mako and screams and shouts and rages at her in a public place that it was Mako's fault that her baby died, that Mako killed her baby essentially on purpose because she was jealous of them and because they are white and because they you did it because you're jealous of me, because we're white and good and God-fearing and Jesus loves us, and it's something you'll never ever have. And I just had to stop. Like that, this chapter, this flashback is only a couple pages, a handful of pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages. 5 pages. And I am just, I'm feeling a lot. I can tell that part of me wants to cry. Part of me is very angry. Part of me is like kind of nauseous. Part of that is because I don't feel well. I stayed home from work today. That's a whole other thing. But like, I know part of that is I don't feel good, but part of it is this book. And I'm starting to wonder if the real horror of this story is not the demons or the spider demon and the ghosts and the strange, crazy illness. It is the horrors of what human beings do to other people in the name of what is good. Yeah. I'm gonna get back to it. Hi. So it is now Thursday. When I last checked in, it was Monday. I'm feeling a lot better. I may look slightly different because I had a haircut on Tuesday, so I kept the orange. We just brightened it up and trimmed the sides, but that's not what you're here for. I have finished 2 books and have started a next one, and I'm debating. I'm not going to start another book tonight, but because it's already almost 10 o'clock. So I finished Kill the Farm Boy, and ended up giving it 4 stars. So it definitely surprised me with the ending. I know I had mentioned I wasn't sure where it was going, and that stayed true up until pretty much all the way through to the end. And it definitely left it open for a sequel. And then I did find out that actually it is, as of currently, a trilogy. There are 3 books that all take place. The trilogy, the series is known as The Tales of Pell. The Pell Tales? I think it's The Tales of Pell. And I am not sure if I'm going to continue this series. The other 2 are not available as audiobooks at my library. And I so thoroughly enjoyed the audiobook. I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much if I actually had picked it up to read it, but listening to it was fantastic. The narrator is a voice actor, and he really brought it to life. Each character had its own. Sorry, you're gonna hear Bryant in the background because he is currently in an office playing video games with his friends. But the narrator just brought every character to life. They all had their own sound. They all had their own voice, and he just did a great job with the story and being a narrator. So I don't know if I want to pick up the next book. I don't know. I also finished The Fervor, and boy, do I have thoughts. I finished it last night, and I just needed I essentially needed 24 hours to collect my thoughts because it was just a lot. And all I can say for sure is fuck that ending. So, gosh, okay. Spoiler-ish. I'm gonna say spoilers just to be safe if you ever are, if you're interested. Let's say that I was right. So, when I had last checked in, I was very upset and was saying that I was feeling that the direction this was going was that the horror is not necessarily the disease, but that the horror itself are the things that people do to each other, right? That's the true horror, and that's the true message of this. And I was right. So I'm flipping to the end. This is literally like right at the end. And besides, she had seen now firsthand that the real demons they should be worried about didn't live in the venom of spiders. The fervor, that's what she had begun to think of the disease as, had for its symptom the most powerful of contagious elements, fear. It seemed to spread from host to host faster than a spider could and caused violence and cruelty far deadlier than any weapon. For that reason, the antidote alone, she knew, would never save them. The fervor would ebb and flow, but it would never fully die. It had been here since long before the first explosion. Yeah. I will say, so I looked it up after reading the author's afterward. She is of Japanese heritage, and she wrote this during the pandemic. It was published in 2022, and she gives a lot of history about just the ill treatment of Japanese people across hundreds of years is a lot. And it added another layer to the ending for me. So I would definitely say, if you do read this, read the afterword, because it does add another layer, another connection, and it does make the ending that more impactful. It left me feeling angry and just like sick to my stomach, and it had nothing to do with the horrific horror elements of the spiders and the demons and the ghosts and whatever. It was never that, right? It was always going to be about the racism, and that just makes me mad. So would I recommend it? Yes, absolutely. I get why it's horror, because she is a horror author. Do I consider this horror? Maybe. If anything, it has supernatural elements, but it's not scary. So whatever. But that is the first of the Goodreads horror books of 2022 finished. You can just go to the bathroom, honey. It's okay.
You gonna edit me out of your video?
I can. I'm not gonna.
You waiting.
I'm just gonna edit you peeing in the background out.
Oh, you're gonna edit that out too. You're welcome.
I'll leave that in.
No.
Anyway, so number 19 on the list is The Cherry Robbers by Sarai Williams. That's not right. I know the first name is Sarai. And I started that today as an audiobook. It is available as an audiobook through my library, so I did download that today, and I started it and I'm about 20% in. And so far, it's very intriguing. I think it's going to be a slow burn, and I'm not so sure how I feel about that, since this was in your face and in it within chapter 1, right? Like it literally started with an explosion, with a boom. And that is not the case with the Cherry Robbers. I went into it originally blind. I had no idea what it was about. And then I decided to read the synopsis right before I started it. And essentially it is following a woman, an artist named Sylvia, who is actually living under an assumed identity. Her real name is Iris Chappell, and she is like the long lost daughter of a rich Connecticut family of gun owners. And she escaped from her family and completely changed her identity, and we are being told the story of why. So the book opens, Sylvia, aka Iris, is like older. She is an older woman, and someone has contacted her saying, hey, I think you're actually this Iris Chappell. I want to talk to you about it. And she is freaking out. And so it is her writing in a diary the events of her childhood that have led up to this, event for whatever reason that caused her to flee and completely change her identity. So, yes, that's all I got. Good morning. It is Sunday. It's Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all of the mamas out there. You work hard, you do amazing things. This is your day. So I meant to wrap this video up last night on Saturday, because I started it last Sunday and give you a full week of reading, and I really enjoyed it. So I think this is going to continue for a little bit, but I am going to end the video here so that anything I do today will be the start of another video. But it is Sunday morning. I just finished having breakfast in bed. That was part of my treat. Caden made me breakfast completely on his own without Dad's help, and they brought it upstairs and woke me up with it, and I got to enjoy breakfast in bed with my coffee and without interruptions, which is really great. So my day is about to start from here. So when I left off, I had started the audiobook of Cherry Robbers, and I misspoke, so I wanted to offer a clarification before I ended this. I believe I said that the family are gun owners, which is not incorrect, but it's not completely accurate. What I meant was they are gun manufacturers. So the 5 daughters are all heiresses to the Chappell family gun company. So her dad and his father or whatever, they started a gun manufacturing company, like the Chappell rifle or whatever is like the thing. So that's what I meant. I am now 60% through. I have been listening to it. Normally I just listen to my audiobooks like in the car and at work, and I tend not to do audiobooks at home, usually because I'm with a kid, right? I'm doing stuff, or I'm using the time at home to do a physical book. But I am so drawn in by this story that I am finding myself putting my headphones in and listening to it while I'm making dinner, while I'm cleaning, tasks that usually I'm not. Caden is doing something else, and so I can put my headphones in. It's very compelling. It is no longer a slow burn. And I like that a lot. It was really, really slow. We had our first big event. It's obvious. It's in the synopsis. Our first big death happened, And then since then, it has been bam, 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 bam. And the pace has just ramped up, and I'm not sure where it's going. You know, we had a death, we had another death, and then we had another death right after that. So that's intense. Where I've left off, it's about 60%. 3 of the girls are dead now. 3 of the 6. There are 3 left. Yeah, this is a spoiler. Now is a spoiler. Knowing that the girls are dead is not a spoiler because it's in the synopsis, but this now is a spoiler. The boys are downstairs. Mom has been sent to an asylum. Their mother has been sent to an asylum and is no longer at home. The dad is non-existent. And the panic is real. The girls are starting to freak out. So that's where I'm going to end this vlog, especially because I can also hear my husband's about to come upstairs. So you'll see me again this afternoon because I plan on starting a book today. But I will talk to you all very, very soon. Thank you so much for watching. Happy Mother's Day. Be easy with your hearts.